Hey guys, this is Victor from Vitagenics, and please take note of my disclaimer, which says don't listen to anything I say, basically. Okay. Anyway, today I'm going to talk about what is iTeraCare. And we're going to take a really close, deep look at this hot air blower. That's what it says on the box. It actually just says it's a hot air blower on the box. So we're going to talk about the marketing and we're going to do a deep dive on the science. The marketing is really important, and got to give a shout out to those guys at Prife International and even Deshang, because the marketing is pretty slick. They're really not giving us a lot of information about their technology, how it works, which is understandable. They got tons of patents and all that stuff, and it's certified everywhere, basically all over the world. It's already validated where it needs to be validated. And then the rest of the information, they keep pretty close, which keeps us guessing, which means we have to do a lot of speculation on what this technology is. All right, so why should you listen to me and my speculation about the technology, right? So my disclaimer says don't listen to me, but I'm now going to tell you why you actually should listen to me. And it's because I actually have a very deep background in science in a lot of different fields. So for one, I'm a senior computer scientist, or have worked as a senior computer scientist on multiple government contracts. My undergraduate degree is in computers, although I do have a double minor in psychology and sociology. But anyway, I've worked for decades in the field of computer science. And as I mentioned, even on government contracts. I was in the US Air Force, so I worked for the military for 5 years as a satellite wideband communications technician, where I even got, of course, their training. I was at their tech school, so that added on top of everything else I know. And I did quite well there, which I'll mention a bit later. So 5 years there, working as a tech, right, working in the field. I've had my own IT business for 25 years, actually incorporated in the US and in Japan. My Japanese company is actually still active. And I even taught computer science at Central Texas College and was also running a computer lab for University of Maryland. So I kind of covered the technology from a lot of different angles. And I also worked in a semiconductor lab for 4 years, side by side with physicists, chemists, technicians, etc. I know how the chips and things are made. I can tell you how a computer chip is made. I understand photolithography, chemical etching, substrate diffusion, metal evaporation, etc., etc. So once again, I'm just trying to emphasize I have a really good broad perspective of technology, pretty broad and also pretty deep. And of course, I went to school for these different things, right? So, and by the way, the reason why I'm interested in iTeraCare is because I'm actually a wellness practitioner. I'm a nutritionist. I went to school for that too. So you can see, once again, I'm emphasizing I've got a pretty broad background and a pretty deep background. I didn't just go to school, I didn't just study, but I was able to understand deeply. And I also, I'm not a physicist. I don't have any degrees in physics, but I am a physics geek, especially when it comes to quantum physics. And I absolutely love quantum physics. Another reason why the iTeraCare device really appealed to me, because I was able to understand why this is possible. And so I like to share and explain that to people and help you understand, because the more confident you are, the better anything works for you. All right. So speaking of confidence, you should also know that the US Air Force recognized me as the best technician in the world for the combined fields of computers, communications, and electronics. I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's true. Go contact the US government and look it up. So once again, I probably do know what I'm talking about. And I'm going to try to share the knowledge in the best way I can, and hopefully it doesn't get too geeky for you. All right, so let's actually move on to this device. And again, the marketing, I'm probably going to discuss the marketing on and off because, again, while I appreciate how slick it is, and what a great job they do. It also does create a lot of confusion, some of that intentionally. So anyway, we're going to be looking at like these kind of 4 components that we hear talked about. The heat, obviously it is a hot air blower, right? Then it's got this kind of cool looking blue light that comes out of it. And there's all this talk about terahertz, these terahertz waves, which is just a very high frequency of electromagnetic radiation, right? Like light, your TV, etc. But terahertz is pretty special. The terahertz itself is not special, actually, but the terahertz gap frequency is. And this is something often left out of the discussion. But these guys have a very special frequency that they're putting out between the 1 and 30 terahertz range. And then probably the most important aspect is this really special quartz tube or this unique crystal tube that they have. So let's start off with the heat. Let's jump into that. Or let's not. First, talking about marketing and science, you can see even my own marketing material, I take advantage of some things. And I emphasize that there's really 2 key things here that are going on, the terahertz frequencies and the crystal tube. I don't care as much about the heat, although that can be really profound, and I'm going to speak about that again. You'll notice there are 3 different devices, and they actually have different settings, but they all have the same capability, right? They all can achieve the same level of healing. The difference is that when you go to the Pro version, it's meant to be in a clinic, so it can do it all day long, okay? So you're paying for like quality and endurance of the device as you get the more expensive devices. But they all do the same type of healing. Or I shouldn't say the same type of healing. They all empower your body the same way. Okay? So again, moving on to the heat, let's take a look and dive deep into what is all this heat talk about. So you'll actually notice that I have videos talking about, well, forget the heat. The magic is not in the heat. And I do that just because I want to bring more emphasis to some of the other aspects of the technology. But the heat does have benefits, okay? It's not the magic. This is what I'll tell people. Look, the heat is not the magic, but it is incredible. And for some people, it will be like magic. It's important for me to emphasize this, though, because the heat is not just a hairdryer, okay? I mean, this device is not just a hairdryer. You're not going to get the same benefits from a hairdryer. And because when you look at it, right, it looks like it's just a hairdryer and it's got these settings. It even sounds like a hairdryer. It feels like it, but there's a lot more going on. Now, we know that moxibustion is a very, very old or an ancient heat therapy based on acupuncture. It's about applying heat to acupuncture points in a very special way. And you can really get very detailed about moxibustion, and it's a really, really good treatment, a really good therapy. And so this is one of the beautiful things about this device. It's giving you the ability to do moxibustion on yourself at home. And so if you think that, oh, wow, but this device is a little expensive, it's much more expensive to go to an acupuncturist. Now, of course, they have the added benefit of being an expert in what they're doing, and that is not to be undervalued. It's very important. But again, you can learn to do these things yourself. You learn to use this device in a way that an acupuncturist would do moxibustion. Not exactly, but you'll get the general gist of it. And now, of course, if you want to get more advanced in how you're using the heat, well, you learn more about acupuncture, and that's going to help you learn how to maximize the effects of this device. So you can really go crazy with how you're using this device. A lot of advanced techniques, and that's going to bring you more benefit, help you feel better. And I'm not going to go into detail because you can talk forever about how good heat is. And remember, there are many, many different heat therapies out there, and a lot of people just use a hot compress for things, right? We know hot saunas, just sitting in the sun, etc. There are even other devices that use other frequencies like infrared, far infrared, near infrared, just for heat. And they're all a little bit different. They're all beneficial. But again, here the iTeraCare device is kind of putting this moxibustion treatment in the hands of the everyday user. And so it's really good. And you'll still hear me say, it's not the heat, but it is really amazing. It really is. And so, again, this is not near infrared or far infrared. That's not what this device is. There are other devices on the market that do the near infrared and far infrared, like the saunas and the other handheld devices. This is not about that, okay? It's also not the terahertz frequencies that are generating the heat. There's a lot of confusion about that too. They talk about, oh, you're heating the bones with the terahertz frequency. No, that's not what's going on here. So don't get nervous or scared by that. You're not microwaving yourself, all right? This is just thermal heat, okay? It's the hot air. When we're talking about the heat aspects of this device, we're talking about the thermal heat, like a hair dryer, right? Like a blow dryer does. But you'll feel the difference with this device, okay? I mean, it really can get very hot. You're also going to notice that this is not just a blow dryer, it's not just a hair dryer, because the Classic and the Pro, they have settings where there's no heat or very low heat. So you're really not feeling anything as far as heat goes, but it still has the healing power. Okay, people know, we already have tons of people reporting that, yeah, even with no heat, low heat, the ability to assist the body in healing is amazing because of the other technologies, okay? So, as I mentioned, there are different settings on each. I love the Classic because of the price point. This is really what is the game changer here. It's putting insane technology in the hands of the consumer. And then you go up to the Pro version, which is like 10 times the cost because it's for a clinic where it can be used all day long. I'm not a huge fan of the premium device myself because I'm not so much into the heat, and that only has like hot setting and super hot setting. If you love heat, you'll love the premium. But for me, I like the Classic and the Pro, and most people are only going to be looking at the Classic because of the price point. And again, they all are giving you the same type of benefits. So as I already mentioned, the Pro has a no heat option. The Pro and the Classic have these low heat options as well. Okay, so caution. You're going to notice there's a long list of cautions associated with this device, like with any device. So it's a very super safe device, but high heat, okay? You got to be really careful when you're working with high heat. You don't want to point this at your eyes when you've got contact lenses on. That's a really dangerous thing. You're also not going to want to point it at pacemakers and stuff because it's an electronic device, right? So you want to avoid a pacemaker. You're going to want to stay away from like metal implants and stuff. You want to go around those or use the no heat or low heat settings for that kind of stuff. So just be really careful. And again, like anything, the device is super safe. I haven't heard any issues or problems with people, but take it seriously. It's really a very powerful device, and the heat can be really powerful, okay? All right, so moving on, let's take a look at this really cool looking blue light, all right? I've seen lots of information out there about the blue light, and the first thing I gotta tell you is it's only a guide light, period. Don't start thinking that there are all these crazy health benefits, that blue light is so special, it's a certain frequency. No, it's a guide light. Now, with that being said, right, so it's so you can see where you're pointing it, right? Don't underestimate the importance of that. So while there is no direct health benefit from this blue light, there is, in my opinion, or there can be a significant placebo effect. Because when we make things more tangible, we can see, okay, I know I'm hitting that spot. And when you use this, you're going to move it around. You're going to want to guide in a circle, or you're going to go up and down the spine. This blue light is really very impactful for that, to make it easier to use and give you confidence in using it. And so while I say it has no direct health benefit, wow, that's still a pretty big benefit. So I really do appreciate that being there, because that definitely, in my opinion, contributes to placebo. And placebo is everything. It makes you feel more confident that you're using it correctly. You can see where it's going. Because the terahertz waves are not things you can see, right? Or even feel, okay? All right, so placebo effect accounts for 60% of even the pharmaceutical drugs, right? So everyone understands placebo is important. So once again, don't underestimate the light, but don't overestimate it either. All right. By the way, the device works perfectly without the light. Okay, so lots of people, unfortunately, breakage occurs. The company is great about replacing things, about honoring their warranty, so you don't have to worry. But lots of people have used it without the blue light because it became broken, maybe in shipment, it was handled too roughly. And the device works perfectly without the light. One other thing, the light is not dangerous for your eyes. And as you may or may not know, this device may possibly help your vision improve. So you don't have to be afraid of using it around your face and on the eyes. It's not dangerous, okay? All right, so now we're going to take a harder look at this terahertz gap frequency. And I really wish people would always use the word gap, because as the company even says, they tell us it's between 2 and 17 terahertz. That is the terahertz gap. That's right smack in the middle of the terahertz gap frequency, which is, as I said before, quite special. Now, they don't tell us how they're producing this frequency. And this is not an easy thing to produce, okay? So even the company will tell you just several years ago, it cost $500,000 to do this. We know there are products out there that, again, right, they just cost so much money trying to generate this frequency. It's very difficult to get to that point. So it's just our technology hasn't really gotten there until iTeraCare. So there's lots of misinformation and confusion about how they're doing it, because there are many different ways to generate frequencies, whether it's terahertz or otherwise. And once again, they're remaining pretty silent about it. Okay, so as I mentioned, and I've mentioned in other videos, the terahertz frequency is far more impactful than the heat. The heat is incredible, all the things we can do with the heat, but it's just that this terahertz gap frequency is way beyond that, okay? This is where the magic is happening. And for example, it's structuring water and fluids in your body. Okay, we know that, and this is a really powerful, impactful thing. I'm not going to go into details here because I have other videos talking about how important that is to structure water and what it means for your health, and how important it is to structure the fluids in your body. I just wanted to let you know that it's doing that. And what's really cool is I can see that. I can verify this because when you structure water, you can actually feel and taste a difference. And you can see, like, structure water and then freeze it and look at the difference in ice cubes between your tap water and water that you charged and structured with this device, okay? So we know it's having an impact. You can't structure water with heat, okay? You don't structure water with boiling it or anything like that, no. There's a lot of ways to structure water. This is one of them. All right, so there's a lot of conversation out there how this will trigger repair of DNA, collagen, etc. It'll improve the folding performance of proteins. I can't verify that. However, it does line up with scientific documentation and research that's already been done. So, yeah, I would have to agree that this is correct. And while it's not explicit in the materials that come with the device, we have lots of marketing stuff out there. Yeah, so there's a lot of evidence that these statements are true, and we don't exactly have to know everything that's going on in the body because we just see the results, right? We see what's happening with the body. We don't really have to understand why. I just want you to understand the technology more deeply so that you can have more confidence and not be confused by things, okay? So if, for example, if you research terahertz gap, you're going to find statements how, like, we don't have technology to generate this frequency. It's so difficult. So once again, this is really kind of the magical thing that they have achieved with this device. To give us this frequency at a consumer price point is absolutely unprecedented. When I first heard about this, I was like, nah, this is not, we're probably 5 or 10 years away from this happening. But here it is, right? And we're definitely seeing the evidence. I'm seeing the evidence myself, personally and with clients. Okay, so again, just more information. This is explicitly what they say. The frequency range from 2 to 17 terahertz is what they're putting out. Okay, and if you like numbers, there's some numbers for you. All right, so I'm going to give you some more information and why it's important to understand that this is a terahertz gap frequency, okay? All visible light is terahertz. Right in the middle of the terahertz frequency range is just visible light. This is not visible light. This terahertz gap represents like 0.3% of the terahertz frequency band or frequency spectrum. All right, so don't be confused when people are saying terahertz and then you think, oh yeah, well I have an infrared device that's also terahertz. Not the same thing, okay? Not the same thing. All right, like I was mentioning, right? Infrared therapy uses a very specific terahertz frequencies, and you always hear about them referred to by their wavelength instead of frequency. But these are terahertz waves, as you can see, and they'll fall very close. I mean, some obviously are in the visible light spectrum, and some go below that. All right. So again, lots of terahertz frequencies out there, but they're not the terahertz gap frequency. Now, you also hear a lot of things about cytology and this idea that, well, this device is used to identify, what's going on in the body. And no, this device is not used to identify what's going on in the body. It's just used to help the body heal itself. So this is, again, in some of the marketing stuff, people are tapping into the safety of terahertz, okay? And so the reason why you hear discussions about cytology or this idea that terahertz will replace X-rays eventually, or they already are starting to replace X-rays. The reason why you're hearing this in the marketing is just to emphasize the safety of this device. Because since terahertz it has no adverse effects on our biology, and so now they're starting to develop, and yet it can penetrate. So it can penetrate the body and give us images of what's going on inside, the way X-rays can. But X-rays are very harmful, okay? So when you hear marketing and you hear discussions about cytology or about this idea of differentiating and telling us what's wrong with the body, it's not this device. This device is not giving you pictures. They're telling you that just to emphasize how safe this is, okay? The terahertz gap frequency is very safe, very good for us. Okay, so as I mentioned again, the magic is in this terahertz gap. There's this frequency is quite special to our biology because it resonates with different things, specifically the hydrogen bonds. And I just mentioned here a little summary. Why is this gap so impactful? Because it has a subtle effect. If you go lower down, as you go down, for example, this computer I'm using is gigahertz chips, right? And it could be generating frequencies in the gigahertz range. Your microwave ovens are gigahertz. You know what a microwave oven does, right? Now, of course, you need enough power to cause harm. But of course, we know there's a lot of harmful EMFs in our home coming from our electronic devices. Once again, this terahertz gap frequency is above the microwave stuff and above from a lot of the consumer and home electronics. All right. And at the same time, it's not above visible light. When you go above visible light, you start to get into ultraviolet. Great for vitamin D production, but you stay too long in that, you're going to start to get sunburn, skin cancer, etc. So this is down into a healthy range where it's not giving us any problems, but it has a subtle impact that really improves our biological function. All right. So it's a subtle and beneficial effect on certain biological structures. All right. Once again, if you're looking, you can look at this and you can see where terahertz is. All right. And again, I see so much confusion. Another reason why we have confusion is because a lot of the marketing is using terminology from over 50 years ago, right? Or even more, because as humans, as scientists started to discover functions and produce products in certain frequency ranges, they labeled them in different ways, such as microwave. Right? You have microwave for an oven, you've got microwave communications. You've got frequencies used in astrophysics or in particle physics. And these different fields of science will use different labels because they also, sometimes they look at things by the wavelength, not the frequency. All right, and so and terahertz, unfortunately, is used in a lot of different scientific fields and even has different meanings and different ranges that are not even terahertz. But this is terahertz. This is the number, period. Okay, and once again, the terahertz gap frequency is only between 1 and 30. Okay, 1 and 30 terahertz. All right, so moving ahead, the crystal tube and the marketing, we know very little about this crystal tube. Everything is speculation, once again, and even about terahertz gap frequency, right? Still speculation, and again, speculation here. So this tube might be responsible for generating the terahertz gap frequency, because crystals, they are transducers and converters. So they can change one form of energy into another form of energy, and they can change one frequency into another frequency. So there could be one frequency that's easier for them to generate, and then they have the special crystal that's converting that into the special terahertz gap frequency. But I don't know. I'm just guessing. I don't know exactly how they're generating the terahertz gap frequency. But the crystal tube could be involved in that. I'm going to say, in my very strong opinion, heat has nothing to do with generating the terahertz frequency. Now, and the reason why I say this is because out of all the scientific or the technological devices that we have to generate terahertz, none of them are using thermal heat. Also, throughout history and cultures that use crystals for healing, none of them ever used thermal heat. You don't put your crystal in an oven to generate healing frequencies. It doesn't work that way. It's not the thermal heat. You can generate it from the sun, and again, the sun is providing us all kinds of terahertz frequencies, right? A huge range of energy coming from the sun. It's not the thermal. Okay, now, there is one possible beneficial thermal effect. Actually, when we heat the crystal, its precision at converting a frequency is going to start to sway. So for example, if I'm trying to convert one frequency to another 1-to-1, at room temperature, it's fine. If I start to heat that crystal, I'm going to lose the precision. Now, that might be a benefit here, because now that one frequency might be providing a bit of a broader range. As, for example, they said it's producing between 2 and 17 terahertz. Well, maybe there's one source frequency, you heat the crystal, and now it's giving you a little bit of variation there, which may or may not be beneficial. Again, just speculation. Bottom line is, I'm pretty sure the heat has nothing or very little to do with it. If someone disagrees, show me the science, show me the precedent for that. Because I can look at a lot of different ways to produce terahertz waves. None of them involve thermally heating a crystal. Okay? I'm happy to be corrected, but at this point, I can't find it. All right, so as I mentioned, crystals are transducers and converters. Now, another cool thing, we don't know, there could be layers of nanotechnology built on these crystals. I have no idea if that may or may not be true. I don't know what's in that crystal. The reason why I mention nanotech structures is because there is some other work where we're starting to get the ability to create these really, really tiny structures to generate frequencies in a new way. And it's also pretty interesting research. I don't know if they're using that here or not. And once again, this is just speculation, may not be relevant at all. All right, so this is the really big thing. The crystal tube is generating scalar energy. I say you're very likely, but this is really what it's got to be all about. And I would say this is absolutely the single most important thing about this device. I could say that everything else is probably irrelevant compared to the scalar energy. I think what's really going on is they're supercharging this very special crystal of theirs. And they're supercharging it with, they've got a frequency generator. Maybe they're generating the terahertz gap frequency or another frequency that goes through this crystal tube and supercharges the tube and now creates this incredible scalar energy. This is what I think it's really all about. And once again, I look to history and I look to existing technology to draw these conclusions. Okay, and also, and you can see that people reporting benefits. There are people out there muscle testing, using kinesiology, using all kinds of things, and they are detecting the scalar energy. If you want to know more about scalar energy, I have other videos about that too. So I won't talk too much about that. But scalar energy is a total game changer and something that our modern science hasn't really been tapping into for health. Okay, so that is it. So you'll want to know more about scalar energy. You'll want to try to understand that better. Okay, now another thing that could be going on, and again, just speculation, there could be other energy signatures imbued into the crystal. So for example, this is how homeopathy works. We're taking the energy signatures from plant extracts, and then we're putting it into water. We're imbuing their energy signature into water or some other medium to carry that to us, to bring it to us. And we're seeing there are other products on the market like water thermoses and stuff that have good signatures in them, right? They have these healthy signatures in them that they then transfer to water. So this is another thing that could be going on, but I don't know. It's just speculation. All right. Finally, using positive affirmations. When we're talking about scalar energy, once again, we are tapping into a very different realm. If you believe in the idea of positive thought, and again, I mentioned earlier about the power of placebo. The power of placebo is undeniable. When you're using this device, use positive affirmations. Think positive things, say positive things, speak out loud, right? Develop your own mantras, etc., and use this device accordingly. Believe in it. It will have an impact. It will increase the positive effects on the device for you. All right. So I'm going to stop here because this video is already way too long, but I do have a lot of other videos that dive deeper into certain elements here. And if anyone has any other opinions or other information, I'd really like to know, because for me, it's just fun diving in. And once again, I'll be diving in further. I'll be talking about quantum electrodynamics, quantum entanglement, and such to help you understand how this device really works and how it's helping you, or it's empowering you to heal yourself. Okay, so thank you for listening. I hope you found this helpful, and I look forward to hearing your questions.